And I'll open each of the classes with that. Sometimes they'll be a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. I think on Tuesday we do 4 more words. We do text again, but then we also do the word hyper, tiddly, and wiki. So we do, that's like tiddly, wiki, hypertext, but we break each of those words into their component parts, and we talk about what a text is, what the word hyper means, what tiddly is, and what a wiki is. So that's what we'll do on Tuesday. And then for Tuesday's readings, I have you, I'll preview that, but I have you reading some hypertext stuff. Okay, so we're gonna move on to exercise 1.02. You're probably wondering why they're numbered that way. They're built in units, and although it's not visible yet, the level 1 exercises are introductory, level 2 are sort of the next step, 3, and then 4. So we're starting with these first set of exercises. If you want to jump over to exercise 1.02, and if you, I kind of like, sometimes I'm on something, I only want to look at that, so I just do the more action and close others, so I only have that Tiddler open, everything else is hidden. So I'm looking to get this back by Sunday. This is all part of building your initial toolkit, just to make sure that it works. We're going to explain it in the new Tiddlers tagging and linking workshop, which is what we're doing right now. And I wrote a set of directions. Come on. And that's me, Steve, lowercase. I think I submitted something as a sample to make sure that my filters were working. I don't think there's anything there. Okay. For each exercise, I'm going to identify a set of core concepts. So you'll always be able to go back and get them. And these will take you to the relevant pages in tiddlywiki.com. Okay. So that's the manual. Okay. So rather than replicate, and you'll see that my instructions will continue to get more and more sparse because they take forever to write, and I don't really want to be doing other people, there's lots of directions already. So I'm not going to have like click here, click here, click here. I did in the beginning, and we'll have a lot less of that as you get more used to it. So every set of directions will come with a set of core concepts. If you click on the tagging, you'll see that this opens up tiddlywiki.com with several Tiddlers open. And so that's something that I wrote, right? I picked the 3 Tiddlers that are supposed to be responsive to your link. So I kind of wrote that. I didn't design that. That's part of my writing. And that's actually called a perma view. Whatever set of Tiddlers you have open, if you select the option to create a perma view, the URL will change there. It will change so that when you hit that URL again, it will open up all the Tiddlers. And a permalink is just a link to a specific Tiddler inside of a wiki. Okay. So I'll create perma views when necessary. Sometimes they're single Tiddlers. And we're going to talk about creating and editing Tiddlers, tagging, linking, and then we're going to introduce a macro, pretty simple macro called list links. By the way, I try not to use words like simple and just do this, and it's really easy because nothing here is simple, nothing is really obvious, and nothing is particularly easy. So if I say, oh, just do this, oh, it's easy, I apologize in advance. I don't mean to say it is because it's complicated. So, but if I say, oh, that's really hard, you're not going to want to, then you won't want to do it. So just live with that. So the list links macro is a straightforward macro that's relatively easy to use when you first start. So what I want you to do is create a new TiddlyWiki 5 wiki. And the easiest way to do that is to do what you did before. Use this program called TiddlyWiki 5 on TiddlySpot. I hadn't used this much. Yesterday or Tuesday was the first day. Tuesday, Wednesday, I saw 35, 40 people try to use it. And it's pretty good. It works pretty well. But there's some wrinkles in it and things I don't like about it. I may modify it and improve on it and build my own sort of versions. And all it really does is creates a new TiddlyWiki version 5 on the site tiddlyspot.com. If you would rather do something more exciting and fun, there's different ways to do this. There's a couple of extensions for Chrome and Firefox that you can download that will allow you to save them. You can save them to your Google Drive. You can serve web pages from your Google Drive. You can FTP them to your SUNY IT site, or you can just close that back up, pretend it doesn't exist, and do the thing that's relatively simple. So just to review, you type a site ID in here. I suggest you use a common naming structure just to keep things clear for yourself, but you can call these things anything you want as long as nobody else has used it. But if you start with SUNY Poly-Steve, I suppose if you really wanted to be mean, you could go ahead and claim some TiddlySpot names, so I wouldn't be able to use them, but don't do that, right? We'll call this About Me 2. You can call it whatever you want, but I already did About Me last night, so we're going to call this About Me 2. I use the same silly password so I don't forget it. And I make a copy of my site name because I know I'm going to have to paste it in again. I hit Create Wiki. I scroll down. I paste it. I type my password in for the second time. I hit Load. And I go to my new TiddlyWiki. See how much you've improved since Tuesday? That took us like 20 minutes to do on Tuesday. Now we did it in 30 seconds. It took me 2 hours to write instructions for 15 seconds worth of activity. So, so hopefully it works for everybody. Is anybody not getting it to work? Everybody's mastered. So now great, you've got your new TiddlySpot. You still have to do this annoying save settings things. So I want to turn off the sidebar editor. You really don't have to, but I think you should. And you have to set the default tiddler. And I'm going to suggest you set it to About Me. And I'm introducing something slightly different in the way I'm labeling my tiddlers. I put a space in the name. And if you have a space in your tiddler name, you have to enclose it in double square brackets. And so I think this is the first time I've asked you to type non-letters. But if you write code and all sorts of other things, you kind of do this. And what TiddlyWiki does, it just puts some of this grammar of hypertext into the practice of writing. So if you enclose any set of words in double square brackets, they become a link to a tiddler with those words. And that's basically the concept of linking in TiddlyWiki. So I'm going to save my control panel. I'll give it a site name. What's this called? About Me. And as a habit, I'm trying to get into the habit of setting the subtitles to be the name of my TiddlySpot, just so that I remember which one I'm in. I don't know. And then you have to type your password again and save the settings. Saves, and to check it, I'm going to reload it, and it should open up the About Me tiddler, which is blank. Okay, it actually doesn't exist. So what I did back on the class is I wrote my About Me. Okay, let me set this up right so that these two things are right next to each other, and let me close the rest of my tags, my tabs to the right. Go away. Good. And I'm going to close this. So here's my About Me, and this is something that's drag and droppable. I just clicked on it and I'm holding it. So I'm moving it around, and if I go and drag it onto the other tab, I still haven't let go yet, and then come down a little bit till I get that green bar. Basically, you can drag and drop a tiddler from one tiddler to another, from one wiki to another. So go ahead and drag and drop the About Me if you want. If you want to start your own, that's fine too. But since I wrote mine and this is my story and I'm going to show you how to do the exercise, I'm using mine. If you want to write your own, fine. If you want to start mine and change the name where it says Steve Schneider to whatever your name is, you can do that too, whatever you want. So I'm going to go ahead and import this, and then now I'm going to edit it. I'm going to close the sidebar and open the view so I can actually see what it looks like. Okay. So this is my story. This is a narrative. I wrote it. Okay. So I wrote, hello, my name is Steve Schneider. I'm a college professor at SUNY Polytechnic Institute. The difference was that every time as I was writing, just like at the end of your sentence, you put a period, and sometimes you put a comma. Sometimes, you use punctuation to change the way you write. And my belief is that when you type a period, in your mind, you type that period, the thought is closed. It's part of your writing process to understand that you've just written a sentence. That's what we want to do with building links. It's called writing hypertextually. You're now writing with links in your mind. You're writing anticipating somebody's going to build a link. Most of the time you've built links, you've typed something out and said, oh, I want to make that a link. And that's a whole different process. In TiddlyWiki, linking becomes part of your writing. So I'm typing, hello, my name is square brackets, Steve Schneider, close square brackets. I might go back and put brackets around that later. You can sometimes, and depends on what your process is of writing. Some of you write lots of different thoughts and then go back in and make them into sentences by putting periods at the end of them. Some of you write sentences with periods as you're writing. Some of you will say, oh, I know I'm going to want that to be a link, so I'm going to put the brackets in sort of before I type the words. And some of you will write the story and go back and enclose words and brackets. So I went back. I can't remember how I did it. I probably did it both ways. And you kind of mix and match, and then it's just like a different form of writing. So I put brackets or made into links a whole set of words. Steve Schneider, college professor, SUNY Polytechnic Institute, working. Interesting. Working. Okay, so I'm going to make a link to working. Occupations. And I'm thinking, you go back and look at the directions that suggest you do this. I'm beginning to think as I'm writing in terms of different dimensions and different characteristics. So different dimensions of my life and characteristics of those dimensions. So what is my life? I mean, this is not too interesting, but it's for a point, right? So my life, according to this little story, is cars, devices, and work. There's not much else in my life. It's pretty boring. So I thought, oh, well, what are my occupations? When you've had the same job forever, you haven't had many occupations. But before I taught here, I was an adjunct instructor somewhere else. So I had a college professor and an adjunct instructor job. What are the cars I have owned? That's a dimension. Well, I've owned a red Honda Fit, I've owned a blue Dodge Dakota, and a blue Subaru Forester, and a gray Subaru Forester. What are the digital activities in which I engage? Oh, I do surfing the web, tweeting, listening to podcasts, listening to music, texting. What are the digital devices that I own? I have an Apple iPhone. I have to look at to see what I have. An SE. I used to have a 5. I've got a Google Home. So you begin to see that you've got dimensions. So you can write about different members of your family. Like I've got several different siblings, Eric, John, and Susan. I've got aunts and uncle, right? I've got cousins. I have pets. I have books. I play games. Whatever it is, you've got big category and elements in those categories, dimensions and characteristics. And I'd also encourage you and ask you to put some brackets around some verbs. Okay, so there's my story. Well, what do? I've written my story. I've got all these blue words. Now I'm going to bring all of those tiddlers to life and tag them and begin to make a different version of looking at that story. So I'm going to click on Steve Schneider. I'm going to edit the tiddler. I'll write a little bit of text. Good enough. I'll go back, and I should keep going back to where I started from. I'm a college professor. Maybe I'll write a little bit of text. It's a really good job. And here's where we get interesting, okay? Well, remembering the words that I used, college professor belongs to what? Yeah, okay, so I think it was occupations. I think it was with an S, and it has to be right. Occupations. Okay, and maybe while I'm at it, I'll do adjunct faculty member, edit that, and now on the pull down for tags, my occupations tag is there. So now I can tag to occupations. And I'm going to go through, let's see, Cabell Bowen Associates. That's some place that I worked at. So maybe I'll write some notes about that. Wellesley College, let's see, anything else? Red Honda Fit. That was a cars that I have owned, right? So sometimes, and you kind of, you'll get the flow of this by doing it. So I can go to cars I have owned. I don't believe in typing. I believe in copy paste. So I'm going to copy that and discard the changes, and then I'll tag Red Honda Fit to cars I have owned. And maybe I'll go back and tag my blue Dodge Dakota. Anybody want to buy it? It's for sale. 95,000 miles, 4-wheel drive, a little bit of rust. How much? Yeah, right? I don't know. 4,000 or 5,000. It has battery. It has electrical issues. I know. It's a lot of money. I know. It's like, yeah. Gray Subaru Forester. So you get the idea. I'm going to work through here and tag a bunch of stuff to different things. And, you know, I could write a sentence or two about each of those cars. Let's see, the blue Subaru Forester. That was a good car, but the head gaskets blew on that thing. That sucked. That was a $5,000 fix, so we got rid of the car. Let's see, surfing the web. I want to go back to digital activities in which I engage. And I'm going to use that as a tag now. And so that counts for surfing the web. And this is a little tedious, I'll admit. And we don't really do this very often. But the first time, you kind of just have to bear with the tedium. And there's other ways to make this work better, but for now, let's just do the tedious thing and get it all there. And notice after I've clicked on a link, it goes from italicized to non-italicized. That means the tiddler exists. So an italicized tiddler means it doesn't exist yet. I have to birth it, bring it into existence. I'm going to tag it, and you get all these things open, so you keep closing them, listening to podcasts. That's another digital activity in which I engage. And music. Now I clicked on music and it opened up listening to music. Okay, so in order to make that happen, I did this construction. Instead of just putting it in double square brackets with the word, there's the pipe or the vertical bar. On the left of the vertical bar is the label that's visible. On the right of the vertical bar is the tiddler that it goes to. It's like writing in if you ever wrote HTML links, ahref equals src, ahref src equals the link it went to, and then inside was the actual text that was displayed. Same logic here. So that's because I didn't want to write listening to music or listening to podcasts or listening to music. I kind of got into the grammar of it, and my link, I just wanted the word music in there. And so that's why when I clicked on it, it took me to the tiddler called listening to music. What else do we have? Tweeting, texting. I'm not going to do all of these, but I'll ask you to. Did I get them all? What am I missing? Oh, I don't need that. I didn't do my devices yet, right? Digital devices that I own. So I'm going to grab that text, use that as a tag, and tag up my devices. And got the SE. How many of you are iPhoners versus Android users? iPhones? Droids? Windows phones? No. Google phones? Anybody have a Google phone? That's what I want. Yeah, I'm not wild about the iPhone, but oh well. What do I have? I have a Google Home, which I think is the coolest thing I've gotten since my Easy Pass. I'm pretty impressed with Easy Pass, by the way. And I have Apple MacBook Air. I have the 11-inch model because I really like it because it's small and light, and they don't make it anymore. So I actually bought a used one that has like 2 hours of battery life, so I can't even make it through class. So that was a mistake. Okay, so I've done that, and that's not so interesting quite yet, but let's make it interesting. So back in DesignWrite Studio, I have another tiddler called About Me in Tags. And I'm going to drag that over. And yours is going to look a little different than mine because your tags will be different. So looking at About Me in Tags, I've now written a story in tags. And this is introducing a macro called tag. In TiddlyWiki, macros are invoked by not double square brackets, but I call them angle brackets. I don't know. Everybody has different words. Greater than, less than signs just never strikes me as very useful, and I can't tell the difference. So they're just open angle and close angle brackets. We do square brackets, angle brackets, and braces. Single, double, never triple. Okay. So to invoke a macro, in this case, the macro is called tag, and you invoke it with double angle brackets, the word tag, and then you give it a value, and you put that value in quotes. And so now I'm tagging occupations. And so on the left is my code. On the right, you can see what happens. When you click on a tag pill, that's what this little thing is. When you click on a tag pill, it provides links to all the tiddlers that are tagged with that tag. So I can navigate directly to college professor. And so now I can navigate directly to the digital devices that I own. I'm going to close this so it does a little bit better. Cars I've owned, digital devices I own, digital activities in which I engage, and occupations. So what we've done here is actually, if you think about it, pretty remarkable. Right? No code. You've written virtually no code. A couple angle brackets, a couple square brackets. You've created an opportunity for people to interact with your text. All right, the story is pretty silly, and it's a little stilted in its grammar, but we can improve that if we wanted to. But over the years, I've had several occupations. There are many cars that I have owned. There are several digital devices that I own, and not surprisingly, there are different digital activities in which I engage. It's a little stilted, but you get the objective here is to move from. And I didn't finish it. I didn't write about the places. I could have tagged Calvo Bowen Associates and SUNY Polytechnic Institute, my two employers, as employers instead of occupations. We could talk about, and then I haven't worked yet with relaxing and working and stuff like that. So I could begin to play with that and tag relaxing to maybe texting, and do I have watching Netflix? I don't think I did. Surfing and working to, you can begin to imagine that story. So far we've done edit the About Me tiddler and write a story about yourself, and we've fleshed out the story in other tiddlers, and now we're on this last thing. On each of the tag tiddlers, use the list links macro to generate a list of links matching the tag. That's the last thing we need to do. In the directions, there's a link to list links. And I don't know how you guys are with documentation. The way that I use documentation is I try to extract from it what I need as quickly as I can. And then I read it like 20 times, and then eventually I'll read the whole thing and say, God, if I just read that the first time, I would have saved myself some time, but I wouldn't have understood it. So I still do it right. So I'm looking at this, and like I'm looking at parameters, filter type. I don't know what this stuff is. Examples, I can probably deal with that. List links, filter, prefix, I don't know. List links, oh, tag. I know the word tag. I'm going to copy and paste this code into, what did it say to do? It said to, on each of the tag tiddlers. So each of the tag tiddlers, that must be this, occupations is a tag tiddler, because it's a tiddler that represents a tag, as opposed to red Subaru is not a tag tiddler, that's an object tiddler. So I'm going to edit this and paste that code, but instead of, obviously I don't want the list of core macros, I want all the things, all the tiddlers that are tagged with occupations, and then I get a list of them. So that's kind of cool. That's not bad. Still, I'm not doing much, but I'm making some interaction. So that's the thing I like about TiddlyWiki is that it allows you to build a hypertext without really knowing a whole lot of the underlying code. And you can build stuff that's kind of cool. So let's demonstrate that as a little bit more. Let's say before working as a college professor, I was an adjunct faculty, I was a research analyst. Oh, I forgot about research analyst. Okay, so I'll click on research analyst. And in order to make this fun, let's get the occupations tiddler up here. There it is. Okay. Because I like to see it live, so I'm going to tag it with occupations, and it says that one of the other tiddlers that occupations is linked to is called draft of research analyst. Because while I'm editing the tiddler, at the moment that I'm editing, the tiddler is actually called draft of. So when I close the tiddler by saving it, its name will change back to research analyst, and the link in occupations will go back to research analyst. So now what we've done is we have a dynamic text, is that we can add things to lists as we create more tags. I don't have to go back and manually do it. That's kind of like, that's a lot. That's a lot that's happening in a web page, and you're not writing any HTML code. It's sort of like in a website. So that's why I think it's kind of cool and fun. So that's the whole exercise. And that's it. So did anybody follow along and do that as we were working on it? Yeah, I mean, I went really fast because that's my intentions here, because the intentions are for you to watch this video again if you want to. So all the steps, so you don't have to like go through and wait for everybody. I just went really fast. So I'm going to zip through it in like 20 minutes. And then we'll stop the video, the recording, so it's over. And then the